Today, you're all in luck because I'm going to give you all what I refer to as a twofer. And you might ask, what are you talking about? Well, while I typically try and stick to one subject with all the videos I present, there is so much going on behind the scenes that I've got to address them both in one video. And as you'll see, they actually might be intertwined. Now, I don't know, but let's get into it and you can make up your own minds. So hopefully you've all got to see my last video on UFOs and the Bible. And while you might not agree with some of the things I presented, at the very least, you have to acknowledge that the mainstream media seems to be ramping up the possibility of aliens among us. Well, as an addendum to that video, it seems that the mainstream media aren't the only ones wanting to learn more about potential hidden secrets. Just last week, a bill was introduced to Congress called S-2103, the Intelligence Authorization Act. Now, I'm not going to go into the fine details of some of the elements of this bill, but rather the Cliff Notes version boils down to this. Anyone getting government funding and dealing with aliens, you've got 6 months to come clean. So what does this mean? Well, you've got to understand that billions of taxpayer dollars go to governmental contracts every year. Now, some of these companies that have won these contracts are actually household names that you've likely heard of. Lockheed Martin, Hewlett-Packard, General Electric, Honeywell, Boeing. And look, even last week, I showed you a guy who worked for Raytheon at an Antarctic facility that potentially has an earthquake weapon. Now, all of these companies are multi-billion dollar corporations that only exist because of taxpayer dollars. Well, if this bill passes, and it actually has a lot of congressional support at this point, every single company that is dealing with any sort of so-called alien technology will have to disclose what it is they're doing and the technology they have, or they actually risk losing their funding. Did you hear me now? If these companies don't disclose so-called aliens, they lose billions of dollars. So what do you think they're going to do? Now, I need to direct your attention to a video floating around on YouTube about a man named Joseph Spencer. Now, Joseph Spencer worked for the real Men in Black program in the late 60s and 70s. And yes, you did hear me correctly. I did say the Men in Black program. And hopefully you already know about predictive programming. Now, Joseph Spencer died in 1990, but not before leaving behind a diary outlining some of the work that he did. And it's in this video that another gentleman is reading from this diary and came up with this video. Now, I'm going to play a very small piece from the entire video, but you have to hear this and how this plays right into the bill coming forward.
To amplify this response, those who are truly in power of not only our country, but all the countries on the planet, and who are the true purveyors of the depopulation process, have formulated the final stage of their sinister plan. In the year 2024, a global event will alter the course of mankind's future. The world will stand witness to a massive alien invasion. Thousands of projected holographic alien warships will blanket the skies, sending people into a global panic. Real military crafts within the holograms will inflict actual damage to the surrounding areas to sell the gimmick. And as a result of the ensuing human chaos, a one-world government will immediately form without any resistance from the people. They will be the new world order. Once this happens, we as a people will be doomed to enslavement and accelerated depopulation. With that said, the only hope for human salvation is to acquire and spread the knowledge of these activities and agendas. Resist, retaliate, then conquer this imposing enemy. The time is now, as humanity is rapidly approaching its final days.
So hopefully you caught that. And he said that the only way to save humanity is to spread the knowledge and activity of these people. But look, the Bible says the only hope for human salvation is Jesus Christ. Now, consider the fact the latest this diary could have been written was in 1990 when Joseph Spencer died. But it was probably written years before this. Regardless, that makes this over 30 years old. And how do we see this all shaping up for 2024? And one last thing to tie into this. He spoke about a depopulation agenda. This starts now to make sense when you consider the vast reduction in population numbers by 2025, as per the Deagle report that seems to consistently get buried. So let's just put all this on pause because I did say today was going to be a twofer. Now, the second piece of news I've got to address is a terrible draconian-like piece of legislation going around the Western world. Now, this started here in Australia as Bill 2023 called the Communications Legislation Amendment Combating Misinformation and Disinformation. But in Europe, this is the Online Safety Bill. In Canada, it's Bill C-11, Online Streaming Act. And in the US, it's Bill 686, the Restrict Act. But if you looked at the language of all four bills, you would say that it was actually written by one person or one entity, that they're all in lockstep with each other with the sole intent to limit and ultimately eliminate freedom of speech. So why would governments do this? Well, it's really not hard to figure out. And honestly, we saw this during COVID. Let's use scare tactics to rein in the majority of the people. And any of the naysayers will get shut down on all platforms. Now, of course, with time gone by, the truth is finally coming out. And some of us are looking for our pound of flesh and justice. But I honestly don't think these globalists care. Because before you know it, the next crisis will be here. Will it be an alien invasion? Will it be another pandemic like Bill Gates says? I don't know. But what I'm pointing at here, before the globalists push an entire globe into the next phase of tyranny and control, all facets and control mechanisms of the beast system must be in place. These include things like a centralized digital currency, biometric facial recognition hardware and software, regulated restriction of movement, and of course, ultimate control of all communication, making it illegal to go against whatever the government says. And that's what these bills propose. You go along or we lock you up. And I think the globalists learned during COVID just where the leaks in the dam formed and where they had to patch it up. Look, shadow banning and deplatforming, it just wasn't enough. And just like in Hitler's day, it quickly got to the point where even if you were German, you went along with the Third Reich, or you were led to concentration camps, or in many cases, eliminated. And if you think this is extreme or far-fetched, why are there camps set up globally right now? Pandemic is over, right? So why are they still being built? Now, this last month has been quite challenging for me. I've had to make a lot of hard decisions and endure a lot of flack as I find myself moving into a new segment of this life. But even yesterday, I was assured there just isn't time to get caught up in the trappings and potential drama of this life. James 4:14 says, "You do not know what tomorrow will bring." What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Look, it's so easy to focus on that power grab or that person that hurt your feelings or whatever wrongdoing you think someone did to you. And while I might have at one time allowed myself to be overly concerned with such things, truth is, I've got my eyes set much further down the road. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4, "For this light and momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. I know you want to focus on this stuff over here because it's in your face and it looks like a big problem. And in some cases, it is a big problem and needs to be addressed today. But what I'm offering to you is perspective. Because while I present to you how freedoms are being taken away before our eyes, and sin seems to be out of control, and aliens might be invading next week, it's really to show you the time that we're living in. The most important thing is your walk with God and being in right standing with Him. Because if you get that right, Jesus comes for His church today, all that stuff over there, you're going to be kicking yourself for ever giving it a minute of thought. And that's my word of the day. Look, troubles are going to come and go. And that's not to diminish any hardship you might be going through today, because frankly speaking, sometimes it just sucks. But it's more so to come back and say that all this stuff in the Bible, look, it's coming true and there just aren't many pages left. So be mindful of your walk with Christ and trust that He is the only one to save you from the sin of this world. And just as important, look, go talk to that friend or family member today about the gospel. You don't need to win them over in one go, but just plant that seed because you just don't know what might happen. Look, thanks everyone for giving me a voice here. And if you haven't already, please go visit the new site, themightyright.com, as I've been uploading new designs, some of which actually came from you folks, the viewers. And you can also sign up for the new private newsletter that I'm sending out. I'm not quite sure how often I'm going to send this out, but we'll see how it goes. And of course, too, there's also a new Facebook group where we're just trying to build this community. Yes, Facebook is still evil to me. I think it is. But if it gets everyone together, I guess there's some redeeming value. And that's it, folks. And I hope to see you guys next time.